ever feel like, well, this whole AI thing, like, it could be huge.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Like, really huge GE.
Yeah.
Well, Dario Amodei, he's the CEO of Anthropic, and he's been thinking a lot about this. And, well, we've been digging into his ideas about powerful AI. And get this, he's, like, really optimistic.
Yeah, and that's what's so interesting. You'd think, right, that someone who's, really focused on AI safety would be kind of, well,
Doom and gloom.
yeah, exactly.
Right.
But Amodei's saying basically, look, a future with really powerful AI is kind of pretty much a given. It's going to happen.
Yeah, so he's not, like, ignoring the risks, but he's saying that the train's left the station.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought his reasoning was really interesting. Because it's not just like, oh yeah, tech optimism, it's the economics of it.
Right.
He's looking at the sheer economic force behind AI.
Yeah.
And he's like, look, the market forces are just that strong.
Yeah, they're huge.
It really makes you think.
It does. It really does.
So Amadeus, like, instead of saying, well, if it happens, he's like, it's gonna happen. So how's it gonna play out? Let's figure that out.
Yeah. And what can we actually influence, right?
Mm-hmm.
How can we shape this technology as a powerful technology and make sure that, we steer it in a positive direction?
And to explain it, he uses this really vivid analogy.
Yeah.
He compares powerful AI to, get this, a country of geniuses all living inside a data center.
It's such a great image. Millions of AI instances, right? And each one of them is like smarter than a Nobel Prize winner.
Yeah.
And they're all collaborating, solving problems just at warp speed.
It's mind-blowing when you actually stop and think about it.
It is.
But, Amodei brings us back down to earth a bit because he's very quick to point out that even at that level, even with that much intelligence, AI is not some sort of, like, magical solution.
Yes.
It's not a magic wand where we can just wave it at problems and they go poof.
Yeah, it's not magic, exactly.
And he talks about the importance of understanding something called, this was new to me, marginal returns to intelligence.
Yeah, that's a mouthful, isn't it?
Yeah, it sounds very jargony at first.
Right.
It does.
But he explains it well.
He does, yeah.
Basically, it means that we can't just assume that, more intelligence automatically equals faster progress in all areas.
Right.
It's about, like how MUCH does that extra intelligence actually speed things up in different areas.
Yeah, because, just because you have like a super fast race car, right? Doesn't mean you're going to get anywhere fast if you're stuck in gridlock traffic.
Exactly. It's a perfect analogy.
Right. And Amodei highlights a few key areas where even like super intelligent AI is going to face limitations.
Yeah. So like what kind of things are going to slow AI down?
Well, he talks about, the speed of the outside world, which I love, things like we still have to do physical experiments.
Yeah.
We have to manufacture things. We have to, even just waiting for us humans to make decisions.
Yeah.
All of that takes time, even for an AI.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Even for a super fast AI. And then there's the whole data issue, which is, everyone listening probably knows this, but it's worth repeating. AI is only as good as the data we feed it.
Exactly. It's true.
Garbage in, garbage out, right?
Yeah, exactly. You got it.
And in some fields, it feels like we're still just scratching the surface. We just don't have that much good data yet.
And that's true. And, Amodei points out that this is interesting, I thought, that some fields are going to see huge advancements with AI probably pretty early on because we have a lot of data in those areas.
Okay, so which fields? Give me an example.
But he thinks biology is going to be...
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, he thinks biology is going to be huge.
Yeah.
But then other fields, it might take a lot longer to see those benefits just because we don't have the data yet.
Okay.
It all depends on how much data and what the quality of that data is.
And then, of course, we have to talk about the X factor, the wild card humans.
Right.
Because we're messy. The world is messy.
Yes.
People, they don't always act rationally.
They really don't, unfortunately.
Yeah. And we have these, like, complex systems, governments, laws, social structures, like all this stuff it's just not going to change overnight.
Right, exactly.
No matter how smart the AI is.
Absolutely. And Amodei acknowledges that, AI can't just magically solve these problems.
Yeah.
These are deeply human problems that we've been wrestling with for centuries.
Right.
And if anything, figuring out how to navigate those human factors, that's going to be super critical as we explore these areas where he sees AI having a massive impact.
Okay, so let's get into it. Let's talk about those areas where he sees AI like really transforming things.
Okay, let's do it.
He starts off with what he calls a compressed 21st century in biology and health.
I love that.
So basically he's saying that AI could cram 100 years of progress into like the next decade.
Yeah. the bold statement.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
It is.
I don't know about you, but that sounds both incredibly exciting and also just really hard to wrap my head around.
Yeah. Well, and what's interesting about it is he backs it up. Like, he doesn't just throw that out there.
Yeah. Okay, so how does he back that up?
Well, Amodei is not just talking about AI as like a fancy data analysis tool, right? Like, oh, we're just going to analyze data faster.
Yeah.
He envisions AI as like a virtual biologist, like AI that's designing experiments, connecting dots that maybe we humans are missing, and just like accelerating the entire research process.
So like, instead of researchers spending years, sometimes decades, in the lab testing different hypotheses, AI could rapidly run simulations, figure out the most promising avenues, and basically be like, hey, humans, focus your efforts over here.
Exactly.
This is where you're going to make the most progress.
It's about, taking human ingenuity and amplifying it, not replacing it.
I like that.
And he used the example of drug discovery, right? Think about how long it takes today to develop new drugs, new therapies. It takes forever. He believes that AI could cut that time down, significantly, maybe even to the point where we find cures for diseases that, right now we think are incurable.
Yeah, I mean, that's huge. It's really hard to even fathom what that world would look like.
It is.
I mean, we're talking about potentially eradicating diseases like cancer, Alzheimer's, like even genetic disorders that, they've been with humanity for centuries. It's incredible.
It's huge. And Amodei argues that the building blocks are already here.
Really?
Yeah, he points to like all the progress we're making in things like gene editing, personalized medicine.
Right.
And he thinks that AI is just going to like supercharge all that.
Wow.
And it's going to lead to breakthroughs that we can't even like imagine right now.
He even uses this phrase. It's a little, I don't know, it jumped out at me when I read it. Biological freedom.
Yeah.
What is that? What does that even mean?
Well, it's kind of a mind-blowing idea, right?
Yeah.
Amodei's basically saying, look, in the future, we could have so much more control over our own biology. It's not just about treating diseases. It's about potentially, being able to influence our weight, how we age, how we look, maybe even, how long we live.
Okay, yeah, now we're getting into some interesting, maybe for some people a little unnerving.
Yeah, for sure.
Depending on how you feel about all this.
And Amodei acknowledges that.
Yeah.
Like, he's not saying this is all going to be, rainbows and sunshine. He's saying, look, these advancements, they're going to come with some really big ethical and societal questions.
Yeah, for sure.
But he also says this technology's coming.
Okay.
Whether we're ready for it or not, it's coming.
Yeah.
So his point is, we need to be having these conversations now while we still have time to kind of like shape how it plays out.
Yeah. It's a lot to process.
It is.
It really is. And it makes you think, okay, well, we're talking about our bodies. What about our minds?
Right.
Can AI help us sort of unlock our mental potential in the same way that it might reshape our physical selves?
And that is the next big area that Amodei dives into.
Okay.
Neuroscience and the mind. And he believes that, just like we were talking about with biology, he thinks AI could completely revolutionize our understanding of the human brain. And that's going to lead to breakthroughs in mental health.
Oh, wow.
That are just as profound as anything we're talking about in, the physical world.
So you're talking about like a world where things like depression, anxiety, addiction, even like really severe mental illnesses like schizophrenia could potentially be like treated effectively or even cured.
That's the hope. Yeah.
Wow.
Amodei talks about, AI helping us kind of unlock the secrets of consciousness. Like, how do our brains create emotions? How do they create thoughts? Where does our sense of self come from?
Yeah.
And he's saying, look, if we had that level of understanding, imagine the kind of treatments we could develop.
Yeah.
We could move so far beyond the, often kind of limited approaches we have today.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like we're on the verge of this whole new era of mental well-being.
It's really incredible to think about. It is, but I want to shift gears just a little bit and talk about some of the more practical implications of all of this.
Yeah.
And one of the big questions that, I think a lot of people have about AI is how is it going to impact, the economy?
Yeah.
And especially, the gap between the haves and have-nots.
The inequality, exactly.
Yeah. Is AI going to make that better? Is it going to make it worse? What do we think?
And to Amodei's credit, he doesn't shy away from this.
Okay, good.
He really doesn't.
Okay.
He actually says that there's a moral imperative to make sure that all of these incredible benefits we're talking about with AI, they're shared widely.
Yeah.
They don't just benefit a select few.
Because the last thing we need is AI just making the rich richer.
No, exactly.
And making inequality even worse than it already is.
Yeah, and he really emphasizes that. He says, this is something we need to be very mindful of.
So how does he see AI helping to bridge that gap, especially when we think about, developing nations,
Yeah.
places that are really struggling?
Well, he highlights a few things, and I think these are really interesting. So, first of all, he sees a huge potential for AI to really accelerate economic growth,
Okay.
especially the developing world.
How?
Well, imagine AI-powered tools that can help governments, figure out how to use their resources better, identify new industries, predict economic shocks before they happen.
So it's like giving these countries a leg up, giving them new tools to break out of poverty.
Yeah, almost like a turbo boost, right?
Break it.
To help them catch up and, create a more level playing field.
But even if we do that, right? Even if we can use AI to sort of lift up developing countries,
Yeah.
there's still this question of, people in developed economies who might get left behind.
Yeah.
As AI automates more and more jobs.
Yeah.
I feel like we haven't even begun to grapple with what that world looks like.
And it's a huge concern, right?
Right.
And Amodei acknowledges that. He says, look, this is going to be one of the biggest challenges we face.
Yeah.
Figuring out this transition to an AI-powered economy.
Right.
And he's saying we need to be thinking now about things like new social safety nets.
Like what? Give me an example.
Well, he talks about universal basic income, for example.
Okay. Yeah.
As one possibility to make sure that everybody benefits.
It feels like that's a conversation that's starting to happen more and more.
It is.
But it feels like Amodei is saying we need to hit the fast forward button on this.
Absolutely, yeah. This is not something we can just kind of kick down the road.
Right.
And he also says it's not just about the money.
Okay.
It's not just about giving people a safety net.
Right.
He's saying we need to rethink our whole concept of work.
What do you mean?
What does work even mean?
Yeah.
In a world where AI can do so many of the jobs that, we as humans, we value those jobs.
Right.
What happens then? Where do we find meaning and purpose?
It's a great question.
Yeah. And I think, a lot of people listening are probably thinking, well, I find meaning in my work.
Yeah.
That's where I get my sense of purpose.
That's how I contribute to society.
Exactly.
Right.
And, even if it's not always glamorous, right?
Right.
Even if it's not always, the most exciting job.
Right.
It gives us a reason to get up in the morning.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Amodei's argument is, look, meaning doesn't have to come from traditional employment.
Oh, okay. So what's he suggesting?
He's saying, imagine a future where AI frees us
From
having to work just to survive. It allows us to focus on things that are more fulfilling, more personally rewarding.
So we'd have more time for things like creativity, for personal growth, for connecting with others, for, all those things that make life worth living.
Exactly, yeah.
It's an interesting idea, but it's a lot to process.
It is. It is a big idea.
Yeah, and it raises a lot of questions too.
For sure.
How do we get there?
Right, exactly.
How do we actually build that world?
And to be fair, Amodei doesn't claim to have all the answers.
Right.
But he does say, look, we need to start having a serious conversation as a society about how we adapt to this new reality.
Right.
And he throws out some ideas we talked about universal basic income.
Right.
He's saying maybe we need to explore new economic models like that to make sure that everyone can share in the prosperity that this AI revolution could bring.
It's like we're standing at the edge of completely uncharted territory here.
Yes.
And we need to figure out the rules as we go.
And Amodei's message is very clear. This is not about humans versus AI.
Okay.
This is about humans and AI working together to create something better
I like it.
than what we have now.
It's almost like AI could help us cut through the BS a little bit.
Exactly.
And actually have more productive conversations as a society.
Totally. And Amodei believes that if we can get there, right.
Yeah.
If we can create a more informed public, a more discerning public, that's going to make democracy stronger.
Okay. Yeah, I like it.
It's not just about being reactive. It's about, strengthening the core.
So it's not just about fighting the bad stuff. It's about actually making the good stuff better, making it more resilient.
Exactly. And he also talks about how AI could help make government, more transparent, more accountable.
So less bureaucracy, more efficiency. Maybe we could actually have, a good experience dealing with government services one day.
Imagine that.
Wouldn't that be something?
Wouldn't that be nice? Yeah, instead of like pulling your hair out trying to, navigate all the red tape.
Exactly.
Imagine if AI could help streamline everything, like from, accessing healthcare to, I don't know, voting.
Yeah, okay.
Just making these systems work better for everyone.
It's a nice thought.
It is a nice thought. It is.
Okay, so we've talked about biology, we've talked about the economy. What about, like, the law? What about AI and the legal system? That feels like we're getting into some, like, real futuristic territory. Like,
Yeah.
AI lawyers and AI judges? Is that what we're talking about here?
Yeah, well, so Amodei argues that, one of the things AI could do is help us reduce bias in the legal system,
Okay.
to make sure that everybody actually gets a fair shake.
Okay.
Imagine AI, analyzing case files, looking for patterns of discrimination, maybe even flagging cases where, it looks like there might have been a miscarriage of justice.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
So it's almost like having this like AI watchdog,
Yeah. I like that.
making sure that the scales of justice are actually balanced.
Right, because even with the best of intentions, humans, we all have biases, right?
Of course, yeah.
And so the idea that you could have AI sort of check our work in that way, I mean, I don't know, it's an interesting concept.
Yeah, I mean, it's not without its challenges, right?
Of course.
Like, I think the big one is, how do we make sure that the AI doesn't just inherit all of our human biases?
Right.
But Amodei's point is, if we develop this technology carefully,
Yeah.
if we're transparent about how it works, then we can mitigate those risks.
Okay.
And he even suggests, maybe we could use AI to monitor for, like, violations of fundamental rights, as a safeguard against tyranny, against authoritarianism.
So AI could actually help us build a more just and equitable world. I mean, it's a hopeful thought.
It is.
I have to admit, it's hard to, like, fully wrap my head around it.
It's a big idea.
Yeah.
It is a big idea.
Especially when, we see so much anxiety, right? And
Yeah.
so much fear about AI taking over jobs.
For sure. And it's understandable that people are worried.
Yeah.
Like, it's a scary thought, right?
Fine.
To think about, like, what happens if the machines can do everything we can do?
Yeah.
And, Amodei's very upfront about this. He acknowledges that, yeah, AI is going to automate a lot of jobs, potentially most jobs in the long run.
Wow.
But he doesn't see it as some kind of dystopian future.
Okay, so then what? What are we supposed to do? Like, I don't understand. Like, how is that not a dystopia if most of us don't have jobs?
Well, he's saying, maybe we need to rethink our whole relationship with work.
What do you mean?
Like, right now, we tie so much of our identity to our jobs.
Yeah.
Right? It's how we value ourselves. It's how we contribute to society.
Yeah, it's how we make a living.
Exactly.
How we put food on the table.
Exactly, yeah. And Amodei's suggesting that, look, maybe in the future with AI, we won't have to do that anymore.
Okay.
Maybe we can be freed from that and we can focus on things that are, I don't know, more inherently human.
So, like, what kind of things are we talking about here?
Well, he talks about creativity, about personal growth, about connecting with others,
Yeah.
like all those things that, honestly, even today, right?
Mhm.
A lot of people find meaning in those things, even if they don't get paid for it.
Right, like hobbies.
Hobbies, exactly.
Volunteering,
spending time with loved ones. You know,
yeah.
like, there's so much more to life than just, our economic output.
It's like shifting our focus from, like, productivity to, like, actually
Primarily.
living, to, like, being present and, like, experiencing life.
Yes, and, I think some people might hear this and be like, no, that sounds very pie in the sky.
Right. It sounds very idealistic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, that's never going to happen.
But Amodei's argument is, if we want to create a future where AI enhances our lives and doesn't, like, diminish them,
Yeah.
then this is the kind of shift we need to start thinking about.
It's a big ask, but okay.
It is a big ask.
I'm going with you.
It is. It is.
So as we kind of wrap up this whole deep dive into Dario Amodei's vision, what are we left with?
Well, I think the big takeaway here is, it's easy to get caught up in the fear and the anxiety around AI.
Yeah, for sure.
But Amodei's offering us this really hopeful alternative.
Yeah.
He's saying, look, the future is not predetermined. We have a choice here.
Okay.
We can choose to shape this technology in a way that benefits everyone,
Yeah.
that helps us solve the world's biggest problems.
Yeah.
And ultimately, that helps us become more fully human.
It's a powerful vision.
It is.
And honestly, I needed a little bit of that today.
Yeah, too.
A little dose of optimism.
It's a good reminder that, technology is a tool.
Yeah.
And like any tool, we can use it for good or for bad.
So true.
It's up to us to decide.
It's a future worth striving for, even if it's messy, even if it's complicated.
Exactly. And that's how we're going to end this deep dive, with that thought.
I like it.
AI. Because it's not going to be easy, but it's going to be interesting.
I'm here for it. I'm buckled up. Let's do it.
Let's do it. What if, and stick with me here, what if we could take all the progress, all the advancements we think might happen in the next century and cram it into the next decade?
That's a pretty bold idea.
Yeah, and that's Dario Amodei for you.
Okay.
He's the guy we're diving deep on today. And full disclosure, he's not just some wide-eyed optimist about AI.
Right from the jump, you can tell he's grappling with the risks too, which is refreshing.
Absolutely. He's got this very structured way of looking at it. Like, how much smarter do we need to be to solve a problem? He calls it returns to intelligence. And then what are the bottlenecks in the way?
It's a really interesting framework, and you can tell he's not just talking about AI in some abstract sense. He wants to get to the nuts and bolts of how this technology can actually be used to solve real-world problems.
Which is what makes his work so fascinating. So he starts with this area we can all relate to, health and biology.
Because who wouldn't want to live longer, healthier lives?
Exactly. But as Amodei points out, progress in biology, it often feels like it's moving at a snail's pace. Data is limited, biological processes are slow, and living organisms, well, they're incredibly complex.
Yeah, it's enough to make you wonder if there are just fundamental limits to what we can achieve.
And this is where Amodei gets really interesting. He argues that breakthroughs like CRISPR, even mRNA vaccines, as revolutionary as they were, they could have come decades earlier. Decades earlier if we had more brain power to throw at the problem. And that's where powerful AI comes in.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
He doesn't see it as just a tool, right? Not just something that analyzes data for us. He sees it as a kind of virtual researcher. Imagine an AI that can design experiments, that can spot patterns in data that humans might miss, that can even come up with entirely new research avenues.
It's like having millions of Nobel laureates all working on the same problem at the same time.
Exactly. And that's where this idea of compressing a century of progress into a decade, it starts to feel, well, not quite so crazy.
So we're talking about a future where infectious diseases are a thing of the past, where cancer is a rarity, where people are living to 150 or even longer.
That's the vision. But, and it's a big but.
I bet it is.
Even if we can overcome the technical hurdles, which is a big if, there are some massive societal implications to consider. What happens to things like retirement?
Or family structures. Imagine having 5 or 6 generations alive at the same time.
It's mind-blowing. And those are just the questions we can think of now. We're talking about a fundamental shift in how we think about life, about our place in the world.
Right. It's not just about finding new cures. It's about grappling with a whole new set of possibilities, a whole new way of being human. And that's both exciting and a little terrifying.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But we're just scratching the surface here.
Oh, there's more.
Oh, yeah. Amodei doesn't stop at physical health. He also dives into the realm of neuroscience and mental well-being, and what he proposes is equally fascinating.
All right, I'm all ears.
So he sees the same kind of bottlenecks in neuroscience as in biology. Limited data, incredible complexity, but he also sees this amazing opportunity for what he calls a virtuous cycle.
A virtuous cycle, okay.
His idea is that by studying how artificial neural networks learn, we can actually gain a deeper understanding of our own brains.
So it's like holding up a mirror to our own intelligence.
Exactly. And he suggests that this could lead to some incredible breakthroughs. He outlines these 4 avenues of AI-powered neuroscience. Things like personalized AI coaches for mental well-being or targeted molecular interventions that could address the root causes of things like depression or anxiety.
So instead of just treating the symptoms, we could actually be tackling the underlying mechanisms of mental illness. That's huge.
It really is. And it gets even more interesting. Amodei proposes that this could lead to not just curing specific diseases, but to actually raising the baseline of human experience for everyone.
So imagine a world where people are not just free from mental illness, but are actually functioning at a higher level cognitively.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a world where everyone has access to the tools and technologies that allow them to reach their full potential.
Okay, now that is a future I can get behind.
Right. But, and I hate to be the voice of, well, realism here.
There's always a but.
There is. Amodei is very aware of this too. What good are all these amazing advancements if they only benefit a select few?
Right, the issue of access and equity, it's huge.
It's massive. And Amodei is very clear that ensuring equitable access to powerful AI, especially for developing nations, it's not just a technical challenge, it's a moral imperative.
Okay, so how does he see that playing out?
Well, this is where things get a little bit trickier. Because, as Amodei points out, economics involves human behavior,
And human behavior can be messy.
to say the least. But he's cautiously optimistic. He believes that AI could completely revolutionize how we approach global health challenges.
Like what? Give me some examples.
Well, imagine AI-driven systems that can track disease outbreaks in real time. Or they can optimize the distribution of medical supplies, even help to eradicate disease carriers like mosquitoes.
So we're talking about potentially eliminating diseases like malaria or dengue fever.
That's the idea. And it gets even more ambitious. Amodei believes that AI could hold the key to unlocking unprecedented economic growth in developing nations.
Unprecedented, like how much growth are we talking about?
He throws out numbers like 20% annual GDP growth or more.
Wow, if that happened, it would be like hitting the fast forward button on development.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But of course, there are challenges. And one that Amodei brings up is what he calls the opt-out problem.
Opt out.
It's the idea that the very people who could benefit most from AI-driven solutions might also be the most resistant to them, whether it's because of cultural factors, mistrust of technology, or just lack of information.
That makes sense. You can't force progress on people.
Exactly. And that's why Amodei stresses the importance of things like scientific literacy, of making sure that everyone feels empowered to make informed decisions about these technologies. It's not just about having the tools, it's about making sure that everyone has the knowledge and the agency to use them effectively.
Okay, I see where he's going with this, making sure that the future is something we create together, not something that just happens to us.
Exactly. But all of this, and this is where we move from the optimistic to, well, maybe the slightly more concerning.
Uh-oh, concerning how?
We've talked a lot about the potential upsides. But what about the risks? What happens if this power falls into the wrong hands?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It really is, and it's something that Amodei grapples with head-on. He doesn't shy away from the possibility that AI could be used for malicious purposes.
So we're talking about things like enhanced propaganda, surveillance, control.
All of that and more. And this is where Amodei's background is really relevant. I mean, this is someone who's been at the forefront of AI research, who understands the technology at a very deep level, and who's also thought a lot about these very real risks.
So how do we prevent those worst-case scenarios?
Well, that's what we're going to dig into next. Because Amodei doesn't just leave us with a bunch of scary what-ifs. He actually proposes a strategy, a way to try to steer the development of powerful AI in a more positive direction. He calls it the Entente strategy, and it's pretty fascinating stuff.
So Entente strategy sounds kind of diplomatic. Is that the vibe here?
It is, in a way. It's all about democracies around the world working together to kind of guide the development of powerful AI.
So not just letting it evolve on its own, potentially in dangerous ways.
Right. Amodei isn't naive about the fact that not everyone's going to have good intentions with this tech. So part of this Entente is about making sure the supply chain, the actual materials and hardware needed for this stuff.
Which, just to clarify for folks, is a huge deal. You can't build super advanced AI on a toaster, right?
Exactly. It takes serious computing power. So Amodei's saying control those resources, make sure they're not ending up in the wrong hands.
Okay, that's step one, but what then? Assuming the good guys, so to speak, have a handle on things.
Then it becomes about incentives. Amodei argues this democratic alliance, they've got to offer carrots, A&D sticks, to get other nations on board with responsible AI development.
So like a global agreement, maybe? Something with teeth, not just good intentions?
Exactly. He even uses the analogy of a digital Geneva Convention for AI, setting some ground rules for the whole world.
Ambitious, to say the least. But let's play devil's advocate. What if a country just says, nah, we'll do our own thing?
That's where those sticks come in. And this part gets a bit, well, ethically murky, right? Because we're talking about things like economic sanctions, maybe even technological countermeasures.
So there's a recognition that to prevent the really bad stuff, sometimes you got to play hardball. Not saying it's easy or clear cut, but Amodei is acknowledging that reality.
And to be fair to him, he emphasizes that the goal isn't to dominate other nations with AI. It's to create a world where that kind of dominance isn't even necessary anymore.
Okay, so less about brute force, more about strategic use of this advantage to push things in the right direction. But it's not just the global stage, right? Amodei talks about AI improving democracies internally, too.
Oh, absolutely. He paints this picture of a more impartial legal system, streamlined government bureaucracy.
Less red tape, more efficiency, fewer chances for corruption. I can get behind that.
Right. It kind of flips the script on that whole AI leads to dystopian control narrative you often hear. Amodei saying, what if it actually makes our systems more accountable, more trustworthy?
Now, that's a fascinating thought, and it makes me think about how this whole discussion ties back to quality of life. If AI is genuinely improving things for people, making their lives better, wouldn't that, historically speaking, lead to more stable, more democratic societies?
That's exactly Amodei's point. He argues that when people's basic needs are met, when they have the time and energy to think beyond just survival, that's when they start demanding more say in how their world is run.
Makes sense. Hard to hold on to resentment and fear when your kid just got cured by an AI-powered medical breakthrough, you know?
Totally. And this is where Amodei gets really deep, almost philosophical. He's suggesting that maybe by striving for this brighter future, by putting in the effort to make it real, we're tapping into something inherent to human nature.
That striving for a better tomorrow isn't just some idealistic pipe dream, but it's actually hardwired into us.
It's an intriguing thought, right? But let's be real. There's this big elephant in the room when we talk about AI, especially at this level of capability. And that elephant is wearing a blue collar and wondering if it's about to be out of a job.
The million-dollar question, AI and the future of work. No way Amodei skirts around that, right?
So to be clear, he does acknowledge this is the tricky part, even with all the optimism.
Oh yeah, no sugarcoating here.
Mm.
Amodei even admits long-term, our economic systems, the whole way we think about work and value, might need a total reboot.
Okay, so less about having all the answers, more about saying, hey, this is big, we better start wrapping our heads around it now.
Exactly. And that's key to Amodei's work overall. He's not handing us the future on a silver platter. He's giving us the tools to shape it. Roadmap, not a crystal ball.
Which, looking back on everything we've discussed, feels fitting, right? I mean, curing diseases, boosting economies, heck, even making democracy stronger. That's some ambitious stuff.
It pushes the limits of what we usually consider possible. But that's what I appreciate about Amodei's work. He doesn't shy away from the big ideas, and he never presents this future as a done deal, but a choice we get to make.
A call to action, not a prophecy. I like that.
And that brings us back to what really stuck with me, even with all the technical details. As radical as Amodei's vision can seem, there's this strange sense of inevitability about it, like the act of striving for that better future, really believing in it. Maybe that's what makes it more likely to happen.
A self-fulfilling prophecy, but on a global scale, powered by, well, our collective hope.
Exactly. And that, to me, is the most powerful takeaway from all of this. We all have a part to play in shaping this AI-powered future. Even our smallest actions, multiplied by millions of others striving for the same goal, that's how we tip the scales towards something better. So I'll leave you with this as we wrap up this deep dive. What role will you choose to play? Because this ride, it's just getting started.
All right, so get ready, because we are diving deep into Dario Amodei's Machines of Loving Grace.
Oh, yeah, this one looks interesting.
Yeah, you sent this essay our way, and wow, it is a total mind bender.
Really?
Amodei paints this incredibly optimistic picture of how AI could, like, transform the world, for the better.
Okay.
And not in some, like, distant future that we always hear about, but, like, within the next decade.
Oh, wow, so soon.
Yeah, so he calls the coming years the compressed 21st century.
Okay.
It's like he's saying, get ready because we're about to experience a century's worth of progress, like in the blink of an eye.
Wow. I mean, I've heard that before, but
No, it's like
never from someone.
incredible.
Yeah, incredible.
Exactly. So where does he see this like massive transformation happening first?
Well, he starts with a bang tackling biology and health.
Okay.
I mean, we've already seen AI making waves with stuff like AlphaFold, right?
Right.
But Amodei takes it way further.
Okay.
He argues that AI could completely obliterate what he calls limiting factors. Basically, the things that hold back even the most like brilliant human minds.
Okay. I'm intrigued. What kind of limiting factors is he talking about?
Give me an example.
Okay.
Think about how researchers design experiments.
Okay.
It's often a slow trial and error process,
Right.
but Amodei envisions AI coming in as this tireless research partner,
Uh-huh.
not just crunching data, but actually designing experiments, connecting the dots, and accelerating discoveries at an unprecedented rate.
So it's like having a million Einsteins working around the clock.
Exactly.
What does that actually look like in the real world?
Imagine a world where infectious diseases become as rare as smallpox,
Okay.
where cancer is just a blip on the radar,
Hmm.
just a manageable condition.
Wow.
Amodei suggests that AI could even hold the key to doubling our lifespans.
Really?
Yeah, could you imagine living to be 150?
That is...
How would that change your outlook on life, your career, even your relationships?
Whoa, that's heavy. It's hard to even wrap my head around.
Right. And it goes beyond physical health. Amodei dives into the potential of AI to revolutionize neuroscience and mental health.
Hmm.
He talks about curing depression, schizophrenia, and even those really complex conditions we barely understand yet.
So we're not just talking about treating mental illness, but actually curing it at its root.
That's the vision.
Wow.
And it's not just about addressing serious illnesses either.
Okay.
Amodei believes AI could help us tackle things like everyday anxiety, difficulty focusing, even procrastination.
Really?
Yeah. Imagine having a personalized AI coach helping you become the best version of yourself.
Okay, now that's something I could get on board with.
Right.
But it does make you wonder if AI can potentially do all this incredible stuff, even outperform us in so many ways. What happens to the role of humans? What's left for us to do?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Amodei doesn't shy away from the economic implications of this AI revolution.
Yeah, because if AI can outperform us in like practically every field, what does that mean for the future of work? Will we all be out of jobs?
Well, it's interesting. Amodei believes that, human ingenuity will always find new avenues.
Okay.
He points out that even in a world where AI can handle, say, 90% of a task, humans will still be needed for that crucial 10%,
Oh, interesting.
at least for a while.
Yeah, right. It's like that saying, machines can't take over the world. We still need humans to operate the stapler. But seriously, what happens when AI becomes so advanced that it can handle 100% of those tasks?
Well, that's where things get really interesting.
Yep.
Amodei suggests that we might need entirely new economic models, models that we can't even conceive of yet.
Wow.
He compares it to the shift from hunter-gatherer societies to agricultural ones,
Okay.
and then again to industrial societies.
Right.
These were fundamental changes in how humans organize themselves and their work.
Okay. I'm starting to see where he's going with this.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just about AI doing our jobs for us. It's about AI fundamentally changing the very nature of work itself.
Exactly. And Amodei doesn't limit his thinking to just health and economics.
Right.
He also dives into how AI could transform governance.
Okay.
This is where things get a little bit, Black Mirror-ish, if we're not careful.
Yeah, AI and governance is a pretty hot topic these days.
Yeah.
A lot of folks are worried about the potential for things to go sideways.
Yeah, definitely. Amodei acknowledges those concerns.
Yep.
He points out that AI could be used to empower both democratic and authoritarian forces.
Right.
That's why he stresses the need for what he calls an entente strategy.
An entente strategy. That sounds intense. Break it down for me.
Basically, it's a call for democratic nations to band together,
Okay.
to form a coalition that guides AI development in a positive direction. He talks about using a carrot and stick approach,
Okay.
offering the benefits of AI as an incentive, while also being prepared to push back against any misuse.
So like a global alliance for good AI.
Yeah.
I like the sound of that. But what about using AI to improve democracy from within? Is that even possible?
Amodei, I think so. He argues that AI could be used to combat misinformation, empower citizens, and hold governments accountable. Imagine AI systems designed to ensure fairness under the law and protect individual rights.
Wow, that's a powerful image. But wouldn't that require a level of transparency that we don't have with AI right now? I mean, most of these systems are kind of a black box.
You're absolutely right. Amodei stresses the importance of transparency in AI development.
Okay.
He believes that as AI matures, we'll develop tools and techniques to peek inside these systems,
Okay.
to understand how they're making decisions,
Right.
and to identify and mitigate any biases.
So it's not just about building AI, it's about building trust in AI.
Yeah,
We need to know that these systems are working with us, not against us.
precisely.
Huh.
And for Amodei, that trust is crucial not just in developed nations, but globally.
Right.
He's a big believer that everyone should benefit from these advancements, especially in developing countries.
Now, it's a whole other can of worms. We've already talked about the potential for economic disruption in wealthy countries.
Yeah.
Imagine the challenges in parts of the world that are already struggling with poverty and inequality.
You're raising a really critical point. Amodei doesn't suggest that we just airdrop AI solutions into developing nations and call it a day.
Okay.
He recognizes the complexity of these issues.
Right.
He's talking about using AI as a tool to assist with things like disease eradication,
Okay.
economic planning, even something as basic as ensuring food security.
So it's about providing developing countries with AI-powered tools tailored to their specific needs and challenges.
Right. And let's not forget about climate change, which disproportionately affects the developing world.
Right.
Amodei sees AI playing a crucial role in tackling this, from developing sustainable energy solutions to optimizing resource management.
It's a lot to process. Amodei is painting this incredibly hopeful picture of the future. But it's not all sunshine and roses, is it? There have to be some serious challenges along the way.
Absolutely. Amodei brings up something he calls the opt-out problem, and it's a big one.
Okay, opt-out problem. That sounds ominous. What's that all about?
Basically, it's the idea that even with all these potential benefits, some people will inevitably resist this AI-driven future. You can already see it happening with things like the anti-vaccine movement, right? But imagine that on a much larger scale.
Right.
Like a whole segment of society choosing to opt out of AI altogether.
Wow, so you could end up with this two-tiered society.
Yeah.
Those who embrace AI and reap the benefits, and those who are left behind.
Exactly.
Almost like a technological underclass.
Right, and that kind of division could lead to some serious societal fractures.
Yeah.
Amodei believes that education and open dialogue are crucial to bridging this gap.
Okay.
He also suggests that AI itself could be a tool for fostering understanding and encouraging informed decision-making.
So we need to be thinking not just about building AI, but also about building trust in AI, making sure everyone feels included in this future, right?
Right, and that's a continuous process, not a one-time fix.
Right. Okay, so where does Amodei ultimately land on all of this? Is he hopeful?
Right.
Pessimistic? Somewhere in between?
I'd say he lands on a note of cautious optimism. He acknowledges the very real risks that come with powerful AI, but he also sees a path toward a future where AI empowers humanity in extraordinary ways.
Okay.
He argues that the choices we make today will determine whether we end up with a utopia or a dystopia.
Oh, wow. No pressure. Right. But seriously, it's a lot to consider.
Yeah.
He's essentially saying that we're on the cusp of a societal shift as significant as the agricultural revolution or the industrial revolution.
Exactly. And just like those historical turning points, this AI revolution will bring both incredible opportunities and unprecedented challenges.
Right.
Amodei's essay is really a call to action. It's a reminder that we're not just passive observers in this technological revolution. We have the power and the responsibility to shape the future of AI.
So what you're saying is that the future isn't something that happens to us, it's something we create.
Exactly. And that's a pretty empowering thought to end on, don't you think?
I do. And for anyone listening who wants to dive deeper into Amodei's vision, and trust me, you will want to, we'll link to his full essay in the show notes. It's a wild ride, but it'll definitely get you thinking about the incredible possibilities and the potential pitfalls of a future driven by AI. Right, everybody, welcome back. It's time for another deep dive, and this one's a doozy. We're going to be digging into Dario Amodei's new essay, Machines of Loving Grace, where he lays out, I'd say, a pretty optimistic take on the future with powerful AI.
Yeah, and I think just to be clear right off the bat, he's not talking about powerful, when your phone can finally understand what you mean when you ask it to play, I don't know, music for a rainy Tuesday or something. He's talking about AI with the intellectual capacity of a Nobel Prize winner, but, across multiple fields.
Okay, so not just a physics genius, but also an economics whiz and a master composer all rolled into one. I mean, is that even something we can really wrap our heads around?
Yeah, and it gets even wilder from there, because Amodei's not just imagining one of these super AIs. He's talking about millions of them, all interconnected, like a massive brain working on all cylinders.
So instead of just one Einstein, we've got a whole country full of them all collaborating on, solving climate change, curing diseases, composing symphonies, a whole country of Einsteins in a data center. Okay, I'm starting to see where the optimistic part comes in. But let's bring it back down to earth for a second. What does all this mean for us regular humans just trying to get through the day? Amodei starts with something I think we can all relate to, health.
Right. He actually thinks we're on the verge of what he calls a compressed 21st century, basically making a century's worth of progress in biology and health in just the next 5 to 10 years.
Okay, so we're talking like finding cures for diseases that seem impossible today. That's pretty impressive. But how does he see AI actually making that happen?
So Amadei's argument is that a lot of the biggest breakthroughs in biology haven't come from just, analyzing more data or running bigger experiments. They've come from inventing entirely new tools and techniques. Think about CRISPR for gene editing or the development of mRNA vaccines, or even just figuring out that germs cause disease. Those were all game changers.
So it's not just about having more ingredients. It's about finding completely new ways to use them, like giving a master chef a brand new set of knives or showing a painter a new technique.
Exactly. And Amodei believes AI can be that revolutionary tool for biology. Imagine AI designing super precise drug delivery systems that target individual cancer cells, or developing personalized gene therapies that eliminate genetic diseases before they even manifest.
So it's like having an army of digital researchers working around the clock to unlock the secrets of human biology. And Amodei doesn't stop there. He takes this idea of AI-powered breakthroughs even further, into the realm of neuroscience, which is where things get really interesting. Okay, so we're talking about using AI to unravel the mysteries of the brain. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that science fiction is made of. But Amodei seems to think it's actually within reach.
He does, and I think what's really interesting here is how he connects it back to biology. He's essentially saying that if we can develop AI that's powerful enough to understand the incredible complexity of the human brain, then we could see breakthroughs in treating and maybe even curing some of the most challenging mental illnesses that we face today.
So conditions like depression, anxiety, maybe even Alzheimer's. Are we talking about actually rewiring the brain with AI?
In a way, yeah. Right now, a lot of mental health treatment is focused on managing symptoms, but we don't always have a clear understanding of the underlying causes in the brain. Amodei thinks AI could change that by helping us pinpoint the exact mechanisms that contribute to these conditions.
So it's like having a superpowered microscope that can actually see the electrical impulses in your brain.
Exactly. And once you understand how something works at that level, you can start to develop much more targeted and effective treatments.
'Cause like Amodei doesn't stop at just fixing what's broken, right?
Yeah.
He also introduces this whole other concept, cognitive freedom. What exactly does that mean?
So this is where Amodei's vision gets really interesting. He suggests that just like AI could help us overcome biological limitations, it might also empower us to transcend some of our mental and emotional constraints.
So not just eliminating negative states like anxiety or addiction, but actually enhancing our cognitive abilities. It's like giving our brains an upgrade.
Yeah, it's a pretty mind-blowing concept. Amodei talks about a future where we have much greater control over our own mental and emotional states. Imagine being able to focus better, learn faster, tap into heightened creativity on demand.
So we're all walking around with these superpowered brains able to achieve anything we set our minds to. Look, I'm all for pushing the boundaries of human potential, but this is starting to sound a little too good to be true. Aren't there any downsides to all this? What about the ethical implications of developing AI this powerful, interesting?
Those are definitely important questions, and to Amodei's credit, he doesn't shy away from them. He acknowledges that technology itself is just a tool. It's up to us to decide how we use that tool and what kind of future we want to create with it.
So it's not just about building a better AI, it's about building a better world alongside it. Which leads to another big question. What happens to our jobs in this future where AI can? Design experiments, compose symphonies, and maybe even help us achieve a state of cognitive bliss.
That's where Amodei's vision takes an interesting turn. He acknowledges that AI will undoubtedly reshape the job market as we know it, but he doesn't necessarily see it as a dystopian future where robots take over.
So it's not humans versus machines, it's more like humans and machines working together.
Exactly. Amodei argues that AI will likely automate a lot of the tasks that currently occupy our time, freeing us up to focus on things that require uniquely human skills, like creativity, critical thinking, empathy, collaboration.
Like that old saying, work to live, don't live to work. But now we actually have the potential to make that a reality. If AI can handle the heavy lifting, what do we as humans really want to do with our lives?
That's the million-dollar question, and I think Amodei would argue that there's no one-size-fits-all answer.
So if we're not all going to be, stuck in dead-end jobs just to make a living, what does Amodei think gives our lives meaning in this AI-powered future?
Well, he seems to believe that this shift away from traditional work could actually be a huge opportunity for personal fulfillment. Imagine having the time and resources to really delve into your passions, whether it's writing that novel you've always dreamed of, or traveling the world, or, I don't know, becoming a master gardener, whatever brings you joy.
Yes, like we've been so busy just trying to survive that we haven't had a chance to really thrive.
Exactly. And Amodei suggests that this could lead to a greater emphasis on things like community engagement and collaboration and creative expression.
So instead of everyone being laser focused on climbing the corporate ladder, we're using our collective brain power, amplified by AI, of course, to solve problems that really matter to us.
Yeah, Amodei seems to believe that this kind of future is possible, but he also acknowledges that it's not inevitable.
So he's not just wearing rose-colored glasses here. He recognizes that there are challenges, too.
Right. He stresses that we need to be very intentional about how we develop and implement these AI technologies and make sure that they're used ethically and responsibly.
Because if we're not careful, we could end up creating a future where only a select few benefit.
Exactly. And Modei's point is that we need to be shaping this technology, not letting it shape us.
It's like we're standing at a fork in the road, and the decisions we make today are going to determine what our world looks like for generations to come.
And those decisions are not just about bits and bytes. They're about our values, our priorities, what kind of society we want to live in.
So yeah, I guess you could say this deep dive into Dario Amodei's Machines of Loving Grace has left us with more questions than answers. But I think that's a good thing, because it forces us to confront some really big and important questions about the future. And ultimately, it's up to all of us to decide what role we want to play in shaping that future. So what are you waiting for? Get out there and start building something amazing. Thanks for joining us for another deep dive.
What if we could, hit fast forward on this whole century? Bring in all the best advancements, but in the next 10 years.
Yeah.
Not talking flying cars or anything, but tackling the big stuff.
Right.
Disease, poverty, maybe even how our minds work. That's what we're diving into today.
Okay, yeah.
And it's not sci-fi. It's like this potential future that's being built on all the latest AI developments.
Yeah.
So our guide for this is Dario Amodei.
Okay.
He's the CEO of Anthropic.
Familiar with him, yeah.
They're an AI safety company, and he's got this essay, and it's got everyone talking.
Yeah.
He's laying out this surprisingly optimistic vision of this AI-powered world.
Interesting.
You're all about understanding AI's impact. So we're going straight to the source and dissecting the 5 key areas where Amodei sees the biggest positive changes happening first.
Love it.
Okay, so Amodei, he leads with this idea of what he calls the compressed 21st century.
Okay.
He's saying AI isn't just some data tool, It's like unleashing this global team of the absolute sharpest, most tireless biologists all working around the clock. What do you think of that analogy?
I think it's really intriguing when you frame it like that, right? I mean, think about how right now, progress in things like drug discovery or disease research, it's slow.
Yeah.
It's painstakingly slow.
Yeah.
And so if you think about why is it so slow? Well, growing cultures in a lab, waiting for reactions, these things take time. There's no way around it.
It's a physical limitation.
It is. Plus the sheer volume of data.
Oh, yeah.
That's in biology. I mean, it's just overwhelming, right? Even for the brightest minds.
Totally. So picture this. AI steps in.
Right.
It can analyze mountains of data, genetic information, clinical trial results, all of it at speeds we can't even fathom.
Yeah.
We're talking about sifting through the equivalent of a library in hours, not years.
Right.
And Amodei even gives us a list.
Yeah.
Cancer, Alzheimer's, genetic diseases, infectious diseases. He predicts AI could prevent or cure them all within this compressed time frame.
I think it's easy to be skeptical when you hear things like cure for cancer, right?
Right.
But I think what's different here is that he's focusing on the how, right? Like how AI could make this happen.
Yeah.
And I think that he's pointing to breakthroughs that we're already seeing.
Yeah.
Like, for example, fields like immunotherapy.
Right.
Where AI is being used to help train our own immune systems to fight cancer cells.
Yeah.
So imagine that capability supercharged, right? And it's personalized to each patient's unique tumor.
Wow.
That's the kind of revolution I think he's talking about.
It's like taking a targeted missile to a disease that's plagued humanity for centuries.
Yeah, exactly.
He even suggests our lifespan could double.
It's possible.
Imagine your children grow up thinking of cancer like we think of polio.
Yeah.
A distant threat of the past.
Right.
But it doesn't stop there, does it?
No.
Amodei then dives into how this AI revolution impacts not just our bodies, but our minds.
Right.
And that's where things get really interesting.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like we've been handed this incredibly powerful toolkit,
Right.
but the instructions are still fuzzy.
Yeah.
And that's the thing about the brain.
It's
this final frontier of understanding.
Yeah.
Even more complex than the human genome.
Way more complex.
Right.
Yeah.
But Amodei, he doesn't shy away from that challenge.
No.
He dives right into how AI could unlock the secrets of neuroscience.
It's true.
So,
think about the sheer volume of data generated by the brain.
Yeah.
Billions of neurons firing every second.
Yeah.
It's a symphony of electrical activity.
It is.
And for the longest time, we've only been able to listen to like a few instruments at a time.
Right. It's like trying to understand a Beethoven symphony by listening to one violin at a time.
Exactly.
But Amodei argues that AI could be the conductor.
Okay.
That helps us hear the entire orchestra at once, revealing these intricate connections and patterns within our own minds.
Yeah. And he points to things like, fMRI analysis.
Right.
Which allows us to see which parts of the brain like light up during certain tasks.
Yeah.
But even with that, the data is incredibly complex.
Yeah.
And it takes human experts years to analyze. Just one scan.
Yeah.
AI could analyze those brain scans in real time, spotting subtle patterns, anomalies.
Wow.
That would be impossible for humans to detect.
That's huge.
Right.
Because with that kind of understanding, we're not just talking about treating diseases, but potentially reshaping the brain itself.
Absolutely.
Right. I mean, Amodei mentions cures for depression, addiction, schizophrenia.
Huge.
These are conditions that have plagued humanity for centuries.
They have. And imagine the impact on just everyday life.
Right. Yeah.
He talks about AI helping us manage anxiety, sharpen our focus, even enhance our capacity for empathy and connection.
Okay.
What if instead of just treating mental illness, we could use AI to unlock a higher level of mental well-being for everyone?
That's a really fascinating idea.
Right.
But it also makes me think about, the potential downsides.
Well, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
If AI can enhance our positive emotions, could it also be used to manipulate or suppress our negative ones?
For sure.
It's a bit unsettling to think about.
Yeah, it highlights the importance of ethical considerations in AI development.
Right.
But setting aside the potential risks for a moment. I mean, his vision for the future of neuroscience is incredibly compelling.
Yeah, it is.
He believes that by understanding the brain, we can not only cure diseases, but unlock human potential in ways we can barely imagine.
It's a powerful thought.
Right.
But here's the thing. Even if AI solves disease, transforms our minds, makes us all healthier and happier, what about the rest of the world? What about the billions living in poverty?
Grappling with corrupt governments?
For sure.
Or lacking access to basic resources? Does his optimism extend to those global challenges as well?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It feels like it.
And he doesn't shy away from it.
Okay.
He acknowledges that technological advancements, even as profound as AI, don't automatically translate into a better world for everyone.
Right. It feels like we're often told, oh, technology will bridge the gap,
Right.
But it doesn't always pan out that way.
Right.
So I'm curious, how does Amodei see AI addressing those systemic issues? Can't all be about fancy algorithms. Right?
You're right. It's not just about the tech itself. It's about how it's developed.
Okay.
And crucially, who benefits.
Right.
He talks about this idea of AI as a force multiplier.
Okay.
Imagine a developing nation trying to build infrastructure, manage resources,
or even predict and respond to natural disasters.
Right.
These are already monumental tasks.
Yeah.
Often hampered by limited resources and expertise.
Okay, I'm seeing where you're going with this. It's like giving them not just a leg up, but an entirely new toolkit. Designed for the challenges they face.
Exactly.
But how does that actually play out? Does he give any specific examples?
He does. He points to the potential of AI-powered agricultural systems.
Okay.
Imagine sensors in the field. Drones monitoring crops. All feeding data into an AI that can optimize irrigation, predict pest outbreaks,
Wow.
even tailor fertilizer used to each specific plot of land.
It's like taking precision farming to a whole new level.
Exactly.
We're talking about maximizing yields, conserving resources, and ultimately
Yeah.
lifting farmers out of poverty.
Absolutely.
But what about those concerns about AI widening the gap between rich and poor nations?
Sure.
How do we prevent that from happening?
Yeah, it's a valid concern, and he doesn't dismiss it.
Okay.
He stresses the importance of making sure that AI development isn't concentrated solely in wealthy nations.
Right.
He envisions a future where AI expertise and resources are shared globally,
Okay.
empowering developing countries
Right.
to build their own AI solutions
Right.
tailored to their unique challenges.
It's like that old saying, give a man a fish, feed him for a day.
Yeah.
Teach a man to fish, feed him for a lifetime.
Exactly.
Instead of fish, it's AI algorithms.
There you go.
I like it. Okay, so we've got health, the mind, economic development.
Yeah.
Where do we even go from here?
Well, Amodei doesn't shy away from the big questions,
Okay.
even the ones that keep us up at night.
Right.
What about AI's impact on war and peace,
Right.
on government and individual liberty?
Yeah.
Can AI help us build a more democratic, more just world?
Okay.
Or will it amplify the existing inequalities and conflicts?
These are heavy topics.
They are.
And they're easy to get dystopian about, you know?
For sure. Yeah.
So I'm really curious to hear how Amodei tackles these.
Yeah.
Does he offer any solutions? Or is he just waving his hands and saying hope for the best?
No, his approach is much more nuanced than that.
Okay.
He argues that AI, by its very nature, is a double-edged sword. In the wrong hands, it could be used for surveillance,
Right.
for propaganda,
Right.
for all sorts of nefarious purposes.
Yeah.
But in the hands of those who believe in democracy,
Right.
in human rights,
Yeah.
in the peaceful resolution of conflict,
Yeah.
AI could be a powerful tool for good.
It's like giving a scalpel to a surgeon
Right.
versus giving it to, well, someone who shouldn't have a scalpel.
Exactly.
The tool itself isn't inherently good or bad. It's about the intent of the user.
100%.
So how do we make sure AI ends up in the right hands?
Yeah. He emphasizes the importance of international cooperation,
Okay.
particularly among democratic nations.
Yeah. He believes that by working together,
Yeah.
sharing knowledge, and establishing ethical guidelines for AI development,
Right.
we can steer its trajectory in a positive direction.
It's like building a global immune system for democracy.
I love that.
One that can recognize and neutralize the threats posed by AI in the wrong hands. I like that analogy.
Yeah. Yeah.
But even if we manage to navigate those geopolitical challenges,
Right.
there's still that big question looming over all of this.
Yeah.
If AI can do everything better, faster, and cheaper than we can,
Right.
what happens to us?
Yeah.
What happens to human work,
Right.
to our sense of purpose,
Yeah.
to the very meaning we find in our lives?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It really is.
And he doesn't pretend to have all the answers.
Okay.
He acknowledges that the rise of powerful AI
Right.
will force us to rethink
Yeah.
some fundamental assumptions about work,
Right.
about leisure,
Yeah.
about what it means to be human in a world.
Right. Increasingly shaped by machines.
It's almost like we're evolving in real time,
Yeah.
not just biologically,
Right.
but socially and economically.
Yeah. It's both exciting
Right.
and a little terrifying.
It is. So as we wrap up this deep dive into Amodei's vision of an AI-powered future,
Yeah.
I keep coming back to that question.
Right.
What does it all mean for us?
Yeah.
Where do we fit into this future he describes?
Right.
And how do we prepare ourselves, not just for the technological changes ahead,
Right.
but for the philosophical and existential ones as well?
Those are questions we all need to grapple with.
Yeah.
And he doesn't offer any easy answers.
Right.
But his essay serves as a powerful call to action.
Okay.
He believes this future isn't preordained.
Yeah.
It's up to us,
Okay.
through our choices and actions,
Yeah.
to shape the trajectory of AI
All right.
and ensure it leads to a better world for everyone.
So as you go about your day, as you encounter the ever-increasing presence of AI in your own life, remember this. The future isn't something that just happens to us.
Right.
It's something we create.
It is.
Keep asking questions.
Yeah.
Keep challenging assumptions.
Yeah.
And keep demanding that this technology be used for good.
I love it.
Because the future of AI is ultimately the future of humanity.
It is.
And that future is still being written.
It is.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Of
We'll
course.
see you next time, where we'll continue exploring the ideas shaping our world.